80% of trucking companies fail within the first year. For box truck, I would say the market is still oversaturated.
Meet Elaine, founder of Parridise Trucking and Dispatch, 2024 Advocate of the Year nominee.
Don't make a rush decision, have a plan.
Transforming small business logistics.
What would you say is the most lucrative trucking company to start in 2025?
Anything where you can specialize in. So if you are going to do a box truck, do box truck hazmat, do box truck CDL.
There are people that say trucking is dead now. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say,
I know a lot of you guys are on the road driving and probably can't watch a YouTube video right now. However, we have uploaded our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you can listen to it while you're on the road driving. So let's dive into the episode with Elaine Montanez. Elaine, so you've been in this industry for a few years now, and obviously you seem very good at your job. And there are people that say trucking is dead now. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely do not agree with that statement. Trucking is far from being dead. I do feel that there are some struggles and some challenges and some roadblocks we are experiencing at the moment, but that's in any industry. The trucking industry definitely has an up and down cycle, and we are in the down cycle, but I am optimistic that it will turn into an up cycle like Q1 of 2025.
And what are some of the challenges? You mentioned there are challenges. Like, what are things that are causing people to feel like it's not really there anymore?
Particularly, I would say, from what I experience, is the rates. For the people that do not have like direct freight or direct contract opportunities, new people coming in or that have lost contracts and they're on the spot freight market, the rates are definitely lower. But that's due to supply and demand. There's definitely more trucks and equipment out here than there is freight. And so that's one of the things that affects the market. The other one is when the truckers actually accept the lower rates. It kind of drives the rates down because, they're accepting the cheaper rates. If people were to just hold off and not move the freight for the rates that are being offered at the moment, then the rates will be forced to go up, right? The shippers would pay more money for having their freight transported. And then the brokers would pay more as well because they're getting paid more. So it's just kind of everything affects the cycle of the transporting cycle.
Earlier, you mentioned that you think it's going to turn around by 2025. And recently, according to maritime consultancy, Drewry Freight's rates have already risen by 87% compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2019. And, they don't expect them to return to those earlier levels. And I can imagine that it would be probably good news for providers and dispatchers, but bad news for consumers. Would you still say this is an indicator that it's still a good time to get into trucking?
Yes, as long as you properly prepare before coming in, right? Because those are the things that I've been advocating for, just the knowledge and the education. I sense that there is a gap from, DOT and FMCSA and just the trucking industry in general, not having enough information out there for the people that are looking to get into trucking to properly prepare, like financially, the type of equipment that they're going to purchase, because that obviously affects what your rates are going to be. Just having that knowledge. If you do have that knowledge, I would say I would definitely get into it. You want to be in the market before it turns so that you benefit from the market, from the upcycle, right? You don't want to come in the upcycle because everyone else is coming in on the upcycle. So you want to be ahead of the curve.
That makes sense. And then with all that's happening at the ports and recent strikes and possible forthcoming ones, come in the future, I can imagine, there are shortages with freights and all that. Like, would you say those are like one of the key reasons why providers are finding a hard time to find freight?
That's one of them. I mean, the strike lasted, I believe it was like a week. The rates did not, they were not affected dramatically because the shippers did have contingency plan. I guess, they prepared properly for the event that the strike did take place. I was surprised that it did take place. But I was kind of happy at the same time. I definitely like, as you can imagine, I'm definitely like an advocate for the underdog and what's fair and what's right. And, the port workers were just demanding things that, affect their families and their livelihood. And to kind of meet them in the middle is the right thing to do. And they weren't, the maritime agencies and associations, and they were not, they weren't doing that, right? So, like I said, the rates, at least on my end, I did not see any deviation. Like I didn't see any up or down. But I do think that come January, if like a deal is not landed, then we will see the rates being affected.
And if let's say that deal doesn't come, do you think it'll affect that 2025 date that you mentioned earlier, or do you think it'll still kind of continue?
It will definitely affect the time, the duration of the effect. That's what nobody knows. You kind of are playing it by ear. But look at what happened with the pandemic. Nobody expected a pandemic. Nobody even had that in a thought, right? And it turned into a truckers market. Obviously, the truckers definitely benefited from that because the shippers had to, transport their goods, essential items to the grocery stores and supermarkets, and just to the consumer. So they were paying the $4, $5, $6 a mile, which is unprecedented. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But the trucking industry, you have to be able to adapt, adjust, pivot, all of those things. And so if you follow the market, just stay informed. I think, you should be fine.
Yeah. Hoping for the best though, in January. I also wanted to add on something that you mentioned about the whole strike stuff. Like, I think that's one thing I think that's something that I admired about you, where you were talking about how you were advocating, for the people, and you're very resourceful and you think outside the box and try to make things work. You go beyond just the rule that the industry provided in terms of like what are the new norms of certain rules and time. So just wanted to kind of let you know.
Thank you. That was my main purpose and goal for even doing the interview. I expressed that, I wanted, the trucking industry, to bring more awareness to the fact that this information is not out there. I'm having these conversations with people I interact with, but there are millions of people, that are looking to get into the trucking industry and don't have the proper guidance, or they don't have the proper knowledge. And just bringing that to light is one step forward.
So as far as like freight rates, what rates are you seeing across the board for Hotshot and box truck carriers?
For box truck, I would say the market is still oversaturated. So it really depends on what area you're coming out of and what market you're in. The Northeast, you'll see anywhere between $1 to $1.25. The Midwest, same. More towards down south, you can see a 150 to 175, sometimes even $2 per mile for the box trucks. For the Hotshot, they're a little bit more elevated. Although that market is, you have new entrants, people coming into the industry and purchasing Hotshot equipment. It's mostly non-CDL. And that there's a big difference because, the scale, the weight that you can scale is less than the CDL Hotshot. So if you're like non-CDL, you're in anywhere between 150 to $2 a mile. If you're CDL Hotshot, you're definitely closer to the $2 mile and up. Sometimes even $3 I've seen, which is great. And I'm saying that mileage is not for long OTR. It's for short distances, mostly in the Northeast. And going down south, like towards Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina. And I would say some areas of Texas as well.
And I guess you mentioned about oversaturation. It sounds like it's probably oversaturated because it doesn't require a CDL. If let's say a new trucker was going to get a CDL, like what is the how long would that take for them to kind of attain one?
It all depends on you, right? The timing, I would say realistically, 3 to 6 months. Some people are unemployed or they're going through a transition in employment, and they have the time to complete it sooner. Because it requires CDL instruction. Like, you have to go to the CDL schools now. You have to complete that portion of it. You have to complete your test, and then you have to have the financial security or the finances, right, to be able to purchase the equipment, to get the insurance policies, to apply for your MC authority. Like, all of that takes time. So I would say anywhere between that being on the lower end, 3 months. I've seen people do it obviously quicker than that. But 6 months being on the higher end.
So, how does taking cheap freight impact the industry, and what do you think new authorities overlook when accepting these rates?
I just think it's lack of knowledge. They're just saying, I'm making this amount of money by taking this rate, or they're looking at the end number. So they're paying $1,000. I have $1,000 in my pocket. No, you don't have $1,000 in your pocket. You're not accounting for your operational expenses. You need to know your numbers. You need to know what your break even number is. I help my clients calculate that, so that they know what each mile is costing them, what their fuel consumption is, how to lower that. All of that you have to take all of that into account when you're accepting the rates. And then, okay, it's not, some people are taking the freight and not knowing that they're operating at a loss. Like, you're running this load and you're losing money. You're not making any money, right? Because they're just looking at that. They're just looking at the all in rate. Some people don't even calculate what the rate per mile is, right? But that's, like I said, that's just, in my experience, it's just lack of knowledge of them not knowing.
Did you mind giving like a range of average numbers that are acceptable? When like what are some rates that you would advise truckers to be like, okay, this is an okay range to accept, and you're not being lowballed?
I would say that you have to know what the spot freight market is for that particular lane. And depending on your subscription to the load board, you're provided with that information. I am provided with that information, or have a dispatcher, a professional dispatcher, that will help you navigate that process. And then the second part of it is, like I said, knowing your numbers, because everyone's break even number is different. I've had people have a 78 cents per mile when they thought, I need to get $2 per mile. No, 78 cents per mile will help you break even, and anything over that is a profit. That's someone who's just starting and doesn't have a lot of overhead. Obviously, the people that have more equipment, or they have a fleet, or they have more overhead, obviously that number is going to be higher. It'll probably be $1.25 a mile.
Yeah, I mean, I totally kind of understand the basis of what you're saying, because it really reminds me of how like the importance of financial literacy is, in terms of like how people, even for myself, I just remember a lot of people that I grew up with, like, kind of focused on the surface level numbers, but they don't take into account of like taxes and just all that hidden costs that come with it. So I think that was really good that you're able to educate truckers in this aspect.
Yeah, that's part of the break even calculation process. You have to take into account those things that you mentioned: your accounting, your taxes, if you have anyone working for you, even as an independent contractor, you paying them, all of that takes all, you have to take all of those expenses into account. And some people don't think about those extra expenses. They're just thinking about their truck payment and their insurance, and that's it. I'm like, no, it's more than that. It's your fuel, it's your fuel costs and your fuel consumption, and your miles that you run. It's a deep dive into your numbers.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned earlier that 2025, you believe that things are going to be picking up. So, what would you say is the most lucrative trucking company to start in 2025?
The most lucrative is anything where you can specialize in, right? So I know a lot of people want to get into the box truck. That's the most, the type of equipment that I deal with the most, or at least the inquiries, right? Because I don't accept all box trucks, because of the oversaturation. But if you can specialize equipment, so if you are going to do a box truck, do box truck hazmat, do box truck CDL, because then at that point, one, you're setting yourself apart from all the others, right? So if you're a CDL box truck, you can haul more weight, more freight, more heavier freight. And if you have any type of endorsements like a hazmat, then I do see hazmat box truck loads that become available from time to time, and they definitely pay just for the hazmat endorsement, right? So it's just about creating an avenue for yourself that differentiates you from everybody else. So for the hot shots, the same thing. Instead of having a non-CDL setup, have a CDL setup, so that you can, one, not only haul more heavier freight, but you're getting a better rate for that mile, or for the miles that you're going to run. For the dry vans, which are the 53 foot tractor trailers, and the reefers, which is just the refrigerated trailers, the same thing. I've come across people that have have a dry van, right? But then they have installed like the vents in it, so that when produce season comes, they can also haul not only dry freight but produce freight. So that kind of sets you up as an advantage, because you can kind of haul all year round, as opposed to if you have a refrigerated, a reefer or a refrigerated trailer, your maximum revenue is going to be during produce season. Yes, the refrigerated trucks, you can shut it off and haul dry freight, but there's so many other expenses and components that come into that. So I wouldn't steer anyone from any particular equipment that they find interesting, or that they like, or that they are kind of attracted to, or that's pulling them one way or the other. I would say the most important factor is specialization, and how are you going to differentiate yourself from others that are in the market, right? And then as you're doing that, you're also thinking about, this is how you're going to sell yourself also to shippers, to get those direct contracts and that direct freight, or the direct routes. So those are just things to be cognizant of, when you're thinking about starting or entering the trucking industry.
So you mentioned about like how there's truckers that want to get into hot shots, and there are people that you recommend them to get a CDL, and you gave a time range of like 3 to 6 months on average. Like, what would you say when you advise people to get a CDL? What percentage, or do most people usually follow through with that advice, or how does that usually turn out with the response?
Some people say, well, I'm working, they're in a box truck. Let's just say, for example, I'm working right now. I don't have time. I don't have time to take my CDL. But I'm like, if you're in the truck and you can, listen to YouTube University, or get information on CDL, or have the practice exams on audio. And so therefore you're kind of educating yourself as you're working, so that you can prioritize that. I'm always saying, like, if you really, really want it and you really want to go for it, you will make time for it. You will make it happen. When there's a will, there's a way. So I don't really take, that as I see that as an excuse. And I just, at least for the people I interact with, I push them, to be better. And that's one of the things that, should be priority for anybody entering the trucking industry. CDL is part of trucking. Like you can't do it without it. You can start off without it, but have a plan before you're getting into it and a goal of getting your CDL, or get your CDL and then get into the trucking industry.
How difficult would you say is to find freight for newer authorities under 90 days? And what would you say is the solution for that?
It's very hard. As I mentioned, the trucking industry has changed dramatically from when I first officially started in 2022, right? I had more access to brokers that would work with you from day one. I understand the reason why the brokers and the trucking industry has increased that to the 90 days and has increased that to 180 days. The 1 year, I think, is pushing it, right? 6 months worth of experience and moving freight should be enough. But yeah, it's very hard for them. You have to be creative and think outside the box and kind of partner up with other people and try to find a solution for each carrier, right? Because again, each carrier has different equipment, so it's a unique it has to be a unique solution. What I have come up with, just brainstorming and just with my abilities and my professional background, um, is, hey, if you can't beat them, join them, right? And that's why I became the freight broker, so I can have access to direct freight and be able to have them move it. The other solution is, leasing onto a more um aged authority or aged trucking company that has the authority or that has the relationships with the brokers, but as a temporary, right, solution. It's not something that's going to last long term, anywhere between 3 to 6 months while your MC authority ages. Make sure you keep your authority active, because if your authority is not active, then it defeats the purpose. Then you're just leased on. And that may work for other people. Some people will say, you know what, it's too hard right now to get into the trucking industry. I still want to do trucking. I'll lease on. And that's a separate there's a lot of variations with the lease ons. But you can do that as well. Just lease on as an independent contractor, and then that authority or that trucking company will, give you a percentage. You'll give you'll give them a percentage of whatever freight you're hauling, because they're basically doing you a favor of you using their authority. And it's just kind of, at least you have some revenue, some money coming in until you have the proper setup or you have your proper reserves. Because I say, you need to have the reserves to at least cover your operating expenses for at least those first 90 days. Because if you can't get freight, if you're working with a broker that is adamant about your 90 days, sometimes they, do exceptions, but they're not obligated to. So in the instance that you face that, then at least you're covering your 90 days of expenses, and from your 90 days, it gets slightly easier until you reach your 6 months. It's just like little stages, little milestones that I'm walking them through, right? But I mean, it's something you can't avoid. Like, if you're coming in new into the industry, you're going to start off with a 0-day authority, right?
I like how you think outside the box and trying to make it work, despite of that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that hotshot providers have it harder than other authorities to find freight on load boards. Why is that?
I don't think they have a harder time. I think it's just educating the brokers on the equipment that they have, right? Because if it's a CDL hotshot and they can haul up to 20,000 pounds, and you don't require a dock height truck, there's no reason why this hotshot cannot haul your freight. I think the worry there is because you have non-CDL hotshots that don't have the proper trailers, that don't have the proper experience, and they're kind of coming in, messing it up for the rest of the hotshot community, because they'll have an accident, or they'll have a claim with the freight, some damages, because they had no business hauling that freight. It was too heavy, or it was beyond the truck driver's capacity. Like he was just non-experienced. So again, knowledge is power. And just knowing your equipment inside out, doing your inspections, when you're hauling the freight. That's another important thing that, I try to tell my carriers that I deal with, right? Like, you're responsible for this freight. We want to make sure we transport it in a safe manner, not only for the public, but for yourself as well. And as quickly as possible, right? Because that's your performance is what's going to increase your chances of this broker saying, hey, you did a good job for me. I like him. I'm going to put him on my preferred list. And whenever I have freight, even before I put it on the load board, I'm going to reach out to you, right? That's the space you want to be in. You want to be in the space where the broker reaches out to you before putting out the spot freight so that you have the advantage. But that comes with a lot. Like, you have to build that relationship, that trust.
I mean, that's definitely something that you're really good at. I remember you mentioning about how you really need that rapport with every, person that you talk to and all that. And yeah, definitely is an investment in time.
It is. There's a lot of follow-up, a lot of communication, on-time communication. Even if it's bad communication, at least you're communicating, hey, the truck broke down, and then try to offer the solution at the same time. But we have a second truck and he's on his way to go get, it's just things like that ease the brokers, and they're like, hey, this person really has it together. Their operations are solid. I want to continue working with them, as opposed to having you get put on the internal do not use list. You won't ever know, but you'll continue calling this broker and the broker will say, I'm sorry, we cannot work with you. Why? Just because of that one mistake where you didn't communicate. So it goes a long way.
As far as like when taking in freights, what are some common requirements from providers?
One, obviously, is the documentation. So, the rate cons, signed rate cons, understand what you're being given, make sure that the rate is properly listed there, and see if there's any exceptions. You have to read the rate cons. Some people just get it, sign it, send it off, and don't know that they're setting themselves up for failure, or they're opening themselves to liability, right? And if something's not right, you can always call the broker back and say, hey, something's not right. Oh, you told me the rate was different. We negotiated a higher rate, but it's not listed. Just having that, just taking the time, right? Because it's such a fast-paced industry, and I understand, like, it's on a time, so some of those attention to details are missed. But when you're starting out, I can see truck drivers like trying to dispatch themselves, filling out those documents themselves because they don't want to pay the extra percentage to a dispatch, company. But it does eliminate a lot of the headaches. I always tell them, I'm like, you having a dispatcher is like a burden taken off of your daily, task. It's something less that you have to worry about. You already have to worry about the road. You have to be alert. You have to keep keep checking yourself on time, right? Because the ELD and all those new rules that came up. So how are you going to add more to your plate by trying to do the documents, by submitting it into the factory? It's just it's too much for one person to handle, honestly. Unless, I run into a lot of truck drivers that have their wives dispatching them, right? And that could work for a little while, but she either has to want to do it, because it can get it's time consuming. It can get annoying after a time and frustrating. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So unless she really wants to do it, she or he wants to do it, then you're gonna start realizing that you need a professional, and you need to. It's an investment, but it's an investment that's needed in order for your business to grow, for you to scale, for you to form those relationships, right? Because the dispatcher may have a relationship with a brokerage. And so you're stepping into an opportunity versus, you doing it for yourself.
So speaking of dispatching, how much work would you say goes into facilitating shipments, and is it feasible for owners and operators to do it themselves?
I know some trucking companies as they scale and grow, they have an in-house dispatching team. And I've had a recent encounter with an in-house dispatching team. And although you can call it an in-house dispatching team because you want to save the money, unless the person knows logistics, it doesn't work. So I'm dealing with this direct shipper that didn't want to deal with brokers or dispatchers. He wanted to just only deal with owner operators. But now I see why, because their logistics wasn't solid. So I was able to get, 2 trucks into the routes that they were offering and quickly realized there are many holes in these, in your logistics. Was able to identify it, was able to work with the in-house staff to fix it, right? And at this point, I'm telling him, I'm doing your job for you. You know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, it's opening the door for a better relationship, maybe more opportunities, maybe they have more warehouses, maybe they have different markets that they would need, my expertise, right? But that's just because I've done logistics, not only in trucking, but in property management as well. Like that's part of my day-to-day routine where you're managing these projects, these multi-million-dollar projects, and you're answering to a board of directors. There's your butt is in the hot seat at every moment of the day. And you have to be proactive and you have to think of what can go wrong. And like there's so many things that could go wrong and that do go wrong, and how to put out fires and handle. So all of that I've brought into the trucking industry and can identify when someone has solid logistics or when they're just like, sometimes I say these brokers, I don't understand, how are they in business, because it's just common sense things that I'm experiencing and that I have to bring to your attention that I think could be improved in the trucking industry as a whole.
As a dispatcher yourself, what would you say? What have you learned about directly working with providers?
What haven't I learned? What I've learned is, this industry is based on relationships, right? It's built on, building relationships, but it doesn't mean only with the shippers and the brokers, like that. Obviously, that's one main part of it, but as a dispatcher with your clients, how do you add value? What differentiates yourself from other dispatching companies? And that's one of the things that I've learned, right? Building that relationship with that client that is going to bring forth like some sort of loyalty, or I would say loyalty, right? And that ends up being a benefit for you, right? Because then they are referring you to other people. I have such a great dispatcher, right? But that comes from putting in so much work and so much time and building that relationship. Sometimes you are a counselor, like you're just sitting there just listening to their frustrations while they're on the road, or I need to make this truck payment and we haven't met our quota, and just keeping them encouraged, right? So it's a lot of while you're booking loads and while you're doing the documents and just attending to other clients, right? Because you're like, you're not my only client, I have 6 others. It's just having that balance of empathy, right, with your client, having that balance of great communication with the brokers, having that balance of selling, yourself and your clients and your services to shippers so that you can kind of get more revenue. It's just so many different hats. It's a industry where one day is not the same, right? You have repetitive tasks, but you come across so many different problems and logistic solutions that have to be addressed. That it's challenging, but it's rewarding at the same time. You got to have tough skin to be in it. That's one thing that I've learned. Tough skin and don't take anything personal.
Yeah, just hearing you describe all that, like, this is super random, but have you ever heard of someone named Chris Voss?
I don't know. The name sounds familiar. Where who?
He's a former hostage negotiator. And he wrote a book.
Oh yes, I have his book. I'm almost done with it.
I guess the reason why I bring him up is because everything you're saying, I was like, damn, like I feel like you would be a great hostage negotiator because it just sounds like you have the whole communication skills on lock. You have like deep empathy. You listen to other people's problems, and I feel like you can influence and influence and move people in different ways. So yeah, that was just like a random thought that I had.
Yes. No, yeah, it's so funny that you bring it up because I loved his book. And I always say you could always be better. You could always do better. So as I'm reading the book, I do realize I have a lot of the qualities, but it's just that just comes naturally to me, right? But having them um taught to you and having it being, how can I say this, being able to exercise them in a practical way or think about it like, okay, so this is happening. I like to have a more I like to have it happen naturally, right? So I'm having these conversations, but I'm thinking about, hey, wait a minute, what is that technique that he lists in the book? It's a great book, by the way. I think I have it over there, but it's a great book. I do recommend anyone that is in logistics and dispatching, actually all industries, like they could benefit from the book, because one of the things it says, and I experienced this in property management, is when you have anyone that's calling you as a property manager is calling you because there's a problem. They're never calling you to thank you. Like there's the problem that you need to solve, and sometimes you catch them at their wits end, and they're just super irate. And I've learned that combating that never works. You kind of just have to let them rip you apart, right? Let them get it out. And what I've noticed is by the, mid sentence, after they've gone like a minute or two just rambling on, they will listen to themselves, and they themselves start calming down, and then they start apologizing like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to lay this out on you. But you have to let all of that get out in order for you to even, um, have them listen, right, to what you're saying. Because if you're trying to talk to them while they're irate and in that kind of state of mind, nothing that you say is right. So you're just adding more fuel to their turmoil or to their frustration or to their problem. So I learned that even my meetings with the board of directors is just, if they're upset about something, just let them rip you. And I'm trying to be present and kind of get all of it in to try to get to the root of what it is, right? Because sometimes it's not really what the problem is. It's something else. So I try to get to the root of what it is that's causing that, and then address it. And then they kind of feel more like, oh, I feel heard. And that opens up the door to, okay, tell me what I need. You're the professional, you're the manager. It just, it's just that way.
Wholeheartedly agree with you, and I think you articulated it in a very beautiful way. And I think just kind of add on to what you said. I think beyond like any industry, I think it also teaches people how to understand humans in general too. Just conflict resolutions and all that. I think that's just a life book, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes. It's a very needed skill. You need a lot of patience. So it tests your patience as well as we're all humans, right? It tests your own patience of just shut up and listen to this person, because and have that empathy. Like they could just be having a bad day, and they need someone to listen to them, and whoever they have spoken to has not listened to them at all. And it's your turn. I can change this for this person. I can change their day. How can I make it better? And I tell them I don't have all the solutions all the time, but I will definitely try my best to help with however I can, even if it was just listening to you. So it's an important skill to have in life.
So, Elaine, I want to ask you about, tell me about Paradise Logistics Solutions. Can you tell me more about it?
Well, we started out as Parridise Trucking and Dispatch. That was the dispatch service. It kind of came out of me listening, right? Taking advantage of an opportunity. It was something that I was already thinking about, but going out with friends, and then they expressing to you that they're getting into the Hotshot business. And it was just like, bing, okay, let me hold that. Let me make the introduction and say, hey, I'm taking a dispatch course. If you need me, you're not obligated to use me just because I'm your friend. If you need me, I'm here. Right. And just putting it out like that. And it just so happened that while I had just started my dispatch course, they reached out to me because their dispatcher was not doing their job. And that opened up that began my career in dispatching officially, right? Because I was already dispatching my other friend that I went on the road with. But I started the dispatch company, and as I mentioned, I definitely knew that I wanted to be confident. I like to be confident and know that I can help people learn everything that I can before I open up and say, hey, I'm able to help you to other clients. So I definitely took a deep dive into learning everything there is on the logistics side, right? And then that's where I noticed like a lot of the things I do in property management transfer over. So it built my confidence, right? I'm like, I have the skills that I need to do dispatching. And then building those relationships with the brokers and direct freight and being on the preferred list at that time where various brokers, it just helped us grow together. It's always good when you grow together with a person because then they add an additional equipment. Obviously, you're going to be dispatching that equipment, but you're growing with them. And then you're hiring other dispatchers to help you. You're still growing with your clients. And that it's something that is very important, at least to me, in how I want to do business and operations. So that's how we started. And in May of 2023, I realized that there was an opportunity to do freight brokering. And so I did. I applied for my broker authority and was just overwhelmed, right? Because I was just doing dispatch, brokering, and property management. Um, Took a step back and got back into just dispatching. I let the freight brokering go. Got back into dispatching in late 2023. I kind of took a break from everything. I just was just focusing on my property management career, dealing with corporate, how to navigate the corporate world. And then I switched jobs in property management and I was able to open up some of that time. Right. And I said, you know what? I need to do something for myself and for my children. I'll leave something for them, something that when I'm gone, they can continue and something that I can use my skills, right? It's not something that a new career where I have to go back to school and learn something that I can already use my experience in. And that's a dispatch. Then I had a friend kind of come on board and he's like, let's grow my company together. You are the missing piece that I need. I'm doing my own dispatching. I'm doing my own operations. Let me do the driving and you handle the dispatch and the logistics. And that's how it all started all over again. Then I realized, okay, if I'm going to get back into freight brokering, um, I need to do two separate entities. So since I already had the broker authority with Parridise Trucking and Dispatch, I had to create a new entity for the dispatch service, and that's where Parridise Logistics Solutions came in. So Parridise Logistics Solutions is the dispatch division of the business, and then Parridise Trucking and Dispatch is the brokering part of the business.
I remember you mentioning that you have a vision for getting into customs, and I believe that you had a customs broker test exam this month. I believe October. Did you take it yet?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. Yeah, it's tomorrow. I have to take my customs broker's examination. You have to be able to pass that test in order for you to get your customs broker's license. It is a difficult test to pass. I've been studying and saying, wow, there's like a whole new world of logistics of trucking, but it is something that I feel I can definitely do is an area that I want to explore. Is an area for more opportunity, not only for myself, but for, my clients. It's just being versatile in the trucking industry is very important to kind of like know different areas of trucking and whatever, is interesting to you, right? Because everybody has different interests. That's just what interests me. I heard it and I said, this is something I know I could do. I just have to put a little bit more time and effort. And I'm at the space where I think I would be successful. I hope, at least.
So, what are things that you would tell someone that is interested in getting into the trucking industry?
Well, I've been saying it a lot for the past 2 weeks because I'm getting a lot of inquiries, a lot of, texts, emails, phone calls from my truck and hustle interview. And a lot of them are asking, a lot of them I'm happy because the goal was to reach people before they got into the trucking industry, right? And to properly prepare them. So I'm giving them, steps. Everyone's asking for different types of advice, right? But to keep it general, they're just asking for actionable steps or a guide that they can kind of follow through. And I would say one is properly preparing. Like I said, having make sure you have not only enough money to purchase your equipment, and get yourself up and running, your MC authority, apply all of those fees, but also have the reserve because your first 3 months are going to be the most difficult. So just properly prepare and have that, you will be ahead of the game so much, and it'll be like so much of a smoother entry into the business, right? Know what kind of equipment, be educated on the equipment. Make sure you have a plan to get your CDL if you don't already have it. What other things? Knowing your numbers. Make sure you know your numbers. That is going to make or break you. And in the trucking industry, I believe like 80% of trucking companies fail within the first year. That's a high percentage. And a lot of it is just, not being properly prepared, having lack of knowledge and not being financially, you know, savvy or just having some business experience. Definitely have people on deck that are going to be helping you and supporting you, like a dispatch service, or if it's going to be your spouse or a family member, make sure that they too are immersed in logistics so that you can be successful. Those are just some of the things that off the top of my head that I can recommend for anyone looking to get into the industry. Try to soak up as much knowledge as you can. And feel free to reach out.
I know you mentioned that like when people reach out and you're very selective in a respectful way in terms of like people you work with, like what would you say are like character traits or things that you look for when you qualify someone, I guess?
So if they're new, which is a lot of the inquiries that I get is new authorities. Um I would say I usually ask, do they have any experience? What is your authority age? A lot of them say they're coming from being a company driver, right? They've been on the road. They just are tired of working for someone else and they want to do it for themselves. That already stands out to me because it's a big transition and it's a big move to make, right? You have to believe in yourself that you're going to make it because if you don't have that belief, you would never even made the decision to make the transition, right? So that's one of the things that, stands out to me. And then I kind of go through like a list of questions that I ask them. One of them being, do you know your numbers? What are your operational expenses? Do just trying to tap into seeing what their business operations is like, what their logistic knowledge is, what their, obviously what their experience is. And then seeing if we're a good fit and then the type of equipment, right? Because I'm getting I think I'm at full capacity for box trucks. Um so I can't and I tell them this respectfully. I'm like, I can't accept everyone that comes my way and I can't accept old box trucks. I have to be selective so that I can better serve you. It's not me looking out for myself, it's actually me looking out for you. But if I can't service you, I will definitely help you with any resources that I have, or I will point you in the right direction of a person that I trust and know that will serve you just the same way that I will, right? And so to be able to, refer them to people that are trustworthy, because there's so many dispatch companies out here that are unethical as well. So just making sure that whoever I'm referring people to are people that they can trust, because I trust them or I personally work with them. I'm not going to refer you to just any random dispatch company. Or other people. You can do your own research as well, because you have to be able to. It's not only me making the decision. The carrier also has to make the decision whether I'm a good fit for them as well, right? So it's kind of like a give and take.
Well, I feel like you definitely shared a lot of great gems in this
Thank
interview.
you.
So I just wanted to thank you, but I also wanted to give you the space of, was there anything that you would like to share or promote, anything from your side? We'll definitely leave links, but yeah, just give me space.
I would just say, if you're looking to get into the trucking industry, my advice is have a plan, and it should be like a year out. Don't make a rush decision just based on information that you're just getting from your family or friends or the internet. Do your own research, make sure you're properly informed. Like I said, I am here to be a resource for anyone that is looking for any tips, advice, um, even if they just want to do their break-even calculations, right? I don't know what other dispatch service is offering that, but I definitely do. And we don't have to work together, but I can definitely get you to a place where you know your numbers by the mile, right? That takes a little bit of time, but it's an important number to know for yourself and for any dispatch company that you're going to work with, because that helps the dispatching process. Let me see, what else can I say? I think that's pretty much it. I don't like over sharing or telling too much that I can probably discuss with people personally, because like I said, everybody's situation is unique. So it's not going to be the same solution for everyone. I think we spoke on, several solutions here on the show, several tips that they can kind of grab even if they don't want to reach out. But again, I'm available for anyone that would like some more information.
So Elaine, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
The best way for people to reach out to me is via email. It's Elaine at ParridiseLogisticsSolutions.com. You can visit our website, which is ParridiseTruckingDispatch.com. And there you will find all of the information as far as our direct numbers and our direct emails. Or you can sign up for any notifications, and we will definitely reach out in a timely manner.
For sure. And I also wanted to let people know that Parridise with 2 R's in there, right?
Yes, Parridise with 2 R's. So it's Parradise. Yes, I always say Parridise with 2 R's. I think most people get it, but it's best if you spell it out.
And yeah, so Elaine, I just wanted to thank you again for your time. But before we go, I just want to let you know that I definitely appreciate your authenticity. I admire, your care for people, how you advocate for them. I appreciate your humanistic approach to things in life. You definitely stand on strong character. You're a multi-talented person. You're resourceful, think outside the box, and good luck on your exam tomorrow. I know you do well, and I'm looking forward to seeing your continuous growth to your vision of getting into customs.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That is truly appreciated, because even us, that are in the business need encouragement sometimes. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.